Okay, so imagine this. You're like on one of those remote volcanic islands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the air is thick with salt spray and like you can hear the hum of anticipation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you've got all your gear, a whole lot of hope, and just one shot at making radio contact with the world.
I bet.
This isn't some movie scene, though.
Right.
This is the reality for de-expeditioners chasing those contacts from the world's most remote corners.
Right.
And you know what? Our nifty quick reference guide, it's packed with like all the intel to help us decode those very signals.
What I find fascinating is how these de-exhibitions, often to places most people wouldn't even find on a map, highlight this whole system of country prefixes and zones.
Yeah.
Like they're the backbone of DXing.
Right. It's like a secret code almost to unlock this whole world of long-distance radio. Just flipping through this guide, I'm seeing prefixes for places I've barely even heard of. 3B6/7
Oh, wow.
for Agalega.
Yeah.
Those tiny islands near Mauritius, that's wild. Imagine the stories behind those signals.
It's not just about exotic locations, though.
Right.
These prefixes are assigned by the International Telecommunication Union, or ITU,
Okay.
and they're there to ensure order in the radio spectrum.
I see.
Take 3B8 Mauritius, for example.
Okay.
That prefix tells you instantly where that signal originated.
So it's like each country gets its own call sign that
Yes.
prevents a free-for-all on the airwaves.
Precisely.
But this guide also mentions CQ zones and ITU zones. What's the difference? They both just sound like ways to carve up the globe.
You're spot on about the carving up part. Think of them as two different maps for navigating the DXing world.
Okay.
CQ zones, established by CQ magazine, are all about the thrill of the chase.
Right.
DXers collect contacts from different CQ zones to earn awards like the DXCC, kind of like a stamp collector, but with radio waves.
I like it. So I could be on the hunt for a contact in, say, CQ Zone 32, which happens to cover a huge chunk of Southeast Asia, according to this map.
Yeah.
That one zone alone could keep me busy for ages.
It certainly could. Now, ITU zones, on the other hand, play a crucial role in understanding how those radio waves actually travel.
Okay.
Knowing the ITU zone of, say, a station in Zone 31, Western Europe, can help you predict the best time to make contact
Gotcha.
based on how signals propagate through the atmosphere.
Hold on. So if I'm looking at this ITU map correctly, does that mean a single zone could have like vastly different terrain and weather all affecting my signal?
Right.
I never thought about it like that before.
You've hit on a crucial point.
Okay.
Maps are fantastic visual aids.
Yeah.
But they only paint part of the picture.
Right.
Propagation. How radio waves travel is constantly influenced by things like solar activity, atmospheric conditions, even the time of day.
Wow.
That's where the real skill of DXing comes in.
It's like those old nautical maps with "Here be dragons" scrawled across unexplored regions. You've got a general idea of where you're going, but there are always surprises along the way.
And just like those explorers of old relied on new tools, DXers has some incredible resources at their fingertips these days.
Like what?
Take QRZ.com, for example, an online database of amateur radio call signs.
Okay.
Imagine being able to instantly look up the location and even see the QSL card collection of someone whose signal you just caught.
Wait, QSL cards? Those are like physical proof of contact, right? Like trading postcards with fellow DXers across the globe.
Yeah.
I have to admit, in this digital age, that's pretty cool.
It's a tradition as old as DXing itself. And
Yeah.
for those who love a good visual, there are mapping programs like DXView, which overlay QRZ.com data onto a map showing the real-time location of stations.
So instead of just hearing a blip on the radio, you can actually see where that signal is coming from on a map.
Yeah.
That's got to be incredibly helpful for aiming your antenna and figuring out the best times to make contact.
For sure.
But let's be honest, with a hobby as technical as DXing, I'm guessing there's a lot more to it than just pointing your antenna in the right direction.
You're telling me there's a whole other layer of strategy involved, especially when you're dealing with those like really sought-after DX stations.
Oh, yeah.
It's like trying to get tickets to a sold-out concert.
Okay.
Everyone wants in, and the competition can be fierce.
I bet. The guide mentions this thing called working pileups,
Right.
which I'm guessing is that mad scramble for a rare signal. It sounds more like a contact sport than a leisurely hobby.
It can certainly feel that way. You've got multiple stations all vying for a chance to connect with the same DX station,
Oh, wow.
all transmitting at once, creating this cacophony on the airwaves.
Yikes.
But there's a method to the madness, though.
Okay.
A technique called working split.
Working split. Is that like those secret codes spies use to communicate? Give me the inside scoop.
Think of it as a way to create order in the chaos. Yeah. The DX station will actually listen on a slightly different frequency than they're transmitting on. This split allows them to hear individual callers more clearly rather than everyone transmitting over each other on the same frequency.
So it's like instead of everyone crowding the main stage at a concert, the DX station sets up a separate listening booth off to the side.
Exactly.
Clever, but how do you even know which frequency they'll be listening on?
The DX station will announce their listening frequency or split either during their initial call or kind of sprinkled into their transmissions.
Okay.
DXers need to have sharp ears and be ready to adjust their transmitting frequency to match.
Talk about a high-stakes game of radio hopscotch. You've got to be on your toes, listening for cues and ready to jump to a new frequency at a moment's notice. No wonder serious DXers have reputations for their focus and skill.
It's a combination of technical know-how, quick reflexes, and a bit of luck. But even with perfect timing, sometimes those signals just don't cooperate.
Right.
That's where understanding propagation comes into play again.
Yeah.
And luckily, DXers have some pretty amazing tools to help them predict the best times and frequencies for those long-distance connections.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. We talked about QRZ.com and DXView for locating stations, but what about predicting those elusive propagation paths? Is there a crystal ball for radio waves?
Not a crystal ball exactly.
Okay.
But we do have some pretty sophisticated resources.
Like what?
One is the Reverse Beacon Network, or RBN for short.
Okay.
It's a network of receivers around the world constantly listening for signals and reporting them back to a central database.
So imagine sending out a signal from, say, here in North America and being able to see if anyone in, say, Australia actually picked it up. Talk about instant feedback on your propagation.
Exactly. It's like having a team of scouts spread across the globe reporting back on the conditions.
Right.
The RBN can tell you not only if your signal made it, but also the path it took bouncing off the ionosphere to reach its destination.
That's incredible. It's like mapping out those invisible radio highways in the sky.
Yeah.
But what about those dedicated de-expeditions to really remote locations? Surely those require even more precise information on propagation.
You're right. De-expeditions rely heavily on accurate propagation predictions.
Okay.
That's where tools like VOA Cap and PropView come in.
I've heard of those.
These are serious programs using complex mathematical models to forecast radio wave propagation based on factors like solar activity and even geomagnetic storms.
Wow, geomagnetic storms, that sounds intense. I'm guessing a regular weather app just won't cut it for DXing.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And while these programs might sound intimidating, there are tons of resources available online to help DXers of all levels learn how to use them effectively.
That's good.
In fact, our Nifty Quick Reference even points to VOA Cap online at http://www.voacap.com/prediction.html.
Oh, cool.
And describes PropView, another handy tool, on page 11.
So we've got resources for locating stations, resources for predicting propagation, and even techniques for cutting through the noise of pileups. It's like the DXing world has thought of everything. But all this talk of technology makes me wonder, are there still those personal touches in the hobby? I mean, what about those QSL cards we talked about earlier? With all this digital wizardry, do people still exchange those physical confirmations of contact?
Absolutely. QSL cards are a cherished tradition in the DXing community.
Oh, wow.
A tangible reminder of those long-distance connections. Many DXers take great pride in designing their own cards.
Really?
Often featuring photos of their stations, local landmarks, or even maps of their QSL card collection.
It's like each card tells a story, a miniature snapshot of someone's passion for DXing from all corners of the globe.
Exactly. And for those who might be thinking, but postage for all those cards?
Yeah.
Fear not.
Okay.
The ARL's QSL Bureau streamlines the process.
How so?
It's a cost-effective way, especially for international exchanges, to send and receive those treasured confirmations.
The more we uncover about DXing, the more layers of ingenuity I discover. It's not just about the technology, it's about the community, the shared experiences, even the tangible souvenirs in the form of QSL cards.
It's a reminder that even in our increasingly digital world, those personal connections, those faint signals bridging vast distances, still hold a certain magic.
Absolutely. And speaking of magic, this Nifty Quick Reference has been like our decoder ring for the world of DXing.
Yeah.
We've gone from deciphering country prefixes to navigating pileups and even predicting the whims of radio wave propagation.
And the best part is, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many more adventures to be had in the world of DXing, from experimenting with different antennas to mastering Morse code, even participating in global contests.
It sounds like a hobby that can be as simple or as complex as you make it, but always with that element of exploration and discovery.
Precisely. So to our listeners out there, if you've ever felt that pull towards the unknown, that curiosity about what lies beyond the horizon, I encourage you to dive into the world of DXing.
Who knows? Your next contact could be with someone from a distant island, a bustling city, or even a scientific research station in Antarctica. The possibilities, much like those radio waves, are truly